To have a game that's massively influential is the daydream of most developers. For the small Japanese developer known as Squaresoft, this daydream would come true multiple times over in the form of the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy has been influential in multiple ways, earning its place in pop culture. But it's not just the release of new Final Fantasy games that managed to harness this influence. Even many of the series' concept trailers and tech demos have become some of the most powerful forces in the industry. Final Fantasy tech demos have influenced not only its fans, but the future of the series itself, as well as people external from Square Enix. And many people look at them as both a source of inspiration and wonder. It all began with Final Fantasy SGI, that is Silicon Graphics Incorporated, also known as Final Fantasy VI the Interactive CG game. This short demo featuring Terra, Locke, and Shadow from Final Fantasy VI battling a series of monsters was incredibly impressive at the time. The demo worked by drawing various shapes with a mouse to make a character perform certain actions. For example, drawing a star would summon Bahamut. At the time, it was seen as a precursor to Square's future Final Fantasy project to be released on the Nintendo 64. Yikes. The Final Fantasy SGI demo took up a whopping 20 megabytes. With the Nintendo 64 at max supporting 64 megabyte cartridges, storage was already looking to be an issue for the next Final Fantasy. For the team, this helped decide even further that CD-ROM was the only storage medium big enough to contain the game they envisioned, alongside a number of other storage-based issues like storing pre-rendered backgrounds and CG movies. The decision was made to move Final Fantasy to PlayStation, and the rest there was history. Though even till this day, this demo is looked back upon as the starting point of the adaptation of the classic active time battle system into 3 dimensions. Such things as the cinematic camera angles during attacks became key to Final Fantasy VII's fidelity. The next demo is one that surprisingly few people don't even know existed. With the advent of the PlayStation 2, Squaresoft released a technical demonstration for Final Fantasy VIII and presented what the game would look like if it were built ground up for the system. Funny enough, this demo came out in 1999, which is the same year that Final Fantasy VIII was released. While this demo was very short and simple, it was still a ray of light for all those hoping for a next-generation remake of Final Fantasy VIII someday. Then there's that demo. The demo that I'm sure by now Square Enix heavily regrets making because it caused them a full decade worth of grief, and honestly, it still is causing them grief to this day. Final Fantasy VII technical demonstration for PlayStation 3 showed off the classic opening to the PlayStation 1 hit, as though it were remade with modern technology. At the time, the demo was visually impressive and was incredibly well received. In fact, it was too well received. Final Fantasy XIII was originally in development for PlayStation 2, but the team was so inspired by the response to the Final Fantasy VII tech demo that they decided to reboot the game as a PlayStation 3 title. But its influence goes much deeper than that. The result of this technical demonstration would lead to several rumors about a Final Fantasy VII remake for well over 10 years. The demand spearheaded by the demo wouldn't end until Square Enix announced a Final Fantasy VII remake for PlayStation 4 10 years later. And at this point, Square Enix had been doing Final Fantasy tech demos for some time now. They probably thought nothing of making this demo at the time. It was just a routine thing. But the reality is that this demo, combined with the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, created demand for a proper remake, which will finally be getting 15 years later, on March 3rd, 2020. Then there's Agni's Philosophy Final Fantasy, built on the then upcoming Luminous engine, shown off at E3 2012. Instead of going with their usual move of showing off what a previous Final Fantasy game would look like if it were remade on the current generation, Square decided to build a completely original concept. Though Square clarified that Agni's Philosophy is not meant to show what an actual future game would look like, but to advertise the engine's technical power, as Final Fantasy 15 would go on to use this engine, and doesn't look anywhere near this good. Despite this scene looking like pre-rendered CGI, it's actually completely real-time. The tech demo was powered by PC hardware, using a single NVIDIA GTX 680 graphics card with 16 16 gigabytes of RAM. The Agnes Philosophy tech demo pushed 10 million polygons per scene, including 300 to 400,000 polygons per character. It also used 1.8 gigabytes of texture data per scene. Funny enough, despite this demo being shown off with the PlayStation 4, it might actually be able to run with the PlayStation 5 based on the rumored specs. All this aside, Agnes Philosophy Final Fantasy has an influence that runs deep and is still looked at as what many people want aesthetically when it comes to Final Fantasy 16. The concepts shown off were original and very fresh. In the short glimpse that we got, it's one of the most unique worlds that we've seen in the series for a while, since maybe in my opinion Final Fantasy X. Now many fans are absolutely demanding this world be realized in Final Fantasy 16, and honestly, I'm completely for it. This next one may strike some of you as an odd choice to have on here, but Final Fantasy Versus 13 and the early stages of Final Fantasy 15 were insanely influential. The concept trailers for Versus 13 and early 15 showed off an insanely good-looking game that was too good to even be real. These concepts were radically different than the game we ended up receiving, making it so much more alluring. The game used a temporary work environment called Ebony Engine, which was an early prototype of Luminous Engine, still using various components from its former engine Crystal tools. Unfortunately, this game was far too ambitious, and the result was that it didn't manifest the way people expected. Despite this, it still had a massive influence. Till this day, the concepts of Versus 13 are still referenced in Tetsuya Nomura's artworks, even to the point that the former director Tetsuya Nomura still creates satire of Versus 13 in the form of Virum Rex, a fake toy commercial featured in the Toy Story world for Kingdom Hearts 3. These trailers have also influenced the development of such games as Lost Souls Aside, a game that was inspired by the E3 2013 trailer for the Versus 15 transition. The creator of the game said he was deeply inspired by the trailer, and that inspiration is apparent in the character designs and gameplay. The early progress on this game ended up being so impressive that Sony put some of their own money and resources behind it, and till this day, there are still thousands of fans clamoring for Square Enix to make the original concepts of Versus 13, after being vastly unsatisfied with 15. While for now, this seems quite unlikely, if fans remain vocal, there's always a possibility for new developments. Through it all, Final Fantasy tech demos have been some of the most impressive looks into the future that we've received. They've managed to influence their fans and create demand for projects that otherwise would have never been created. So, Ultima Weapons, which among these was your favorite Final Fantasy tech demo? And would you like to see Agnes Philosophy used as a base for Final Fantasy 16? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you've been enjoying my content, be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky Prince. A big shout out to Jose Rain for helping keeping this channel alive. I could not have done it without you, Jose. Shout out to Jose and the rest of the Ultima community.
Of truths that once rang clear, two souls intertwined, one true love they did find, bringing land and heavens near. But flames that burned full bright soon fell dark.